Hello, good listeners. Welcome back to Literate. In this video, we will be continuing our book Why I Am an Atheist by Bhagat Singh. This is the 20th chapter named Introduction to the Dreamland. When his friend Lala Ram Saran requested him to write as introduction to his collection of poems, Bhagat Singh penned down the following. Please subscribe to the channel for free audiobooks. Hit like button and do leave your feedback in comment section. I suggest you to use headphones for better experience. Here we begin the essay. My noble friend Lala Ram Saran. He asked me to write an introduction to his poetical work, The Dreamland. I am neither a poet nor a literature, neither am I a journalist nor a critic. Hence, by no stretch of imagination can I find the justification of the demand. But the circumstances in which I am placed do not afford any opportunity of discussing the question with the author, arguing back and forth, and thereby do not leave me any alternative but to comply with the desire of my friend. As I am not a poet, I am not going to discuss it from that point of view. I have absolutely no knowledge of a meter, and do not even know whether judged from metrical standard it would prove correct. Not being from literature, I am not going to discuss it with the view of assigning it to its right place in the national literature. I, being a political worker, can at the utmost discuss it only from that point of view. But here also, one factor is making my work practically impossible, or at least very difficult. As a rule, the introduction is always written by a man who is at one with the author on the content of the work. But here the case is quite different. I do not see eye to eye with my friend on all matters. He was aware of the fact that I differed from him on many vital points. Therefore, my writings is not going to be an introduction at all. It can, at most, amount to criticism, and its place will be at the end and not in the beginning of the book. In the political field, the Dreamland occupies a very important place. In the prevailing circumstances, it is filling up with very important gap in the movement. As a matter of fact, all the political movements of our country that have hitherto played an important role in our modern history had been lacking the ideal at the achievement of which they aimed. Revolutionary movement is no exception. In spite of all my efforts, I could not find any revolutionary party that had clear ideas as to what they are fighting for, with the exception of Qadar Party, which, having been inspired by the USA form of government, clearly stated that they wanted to replace the existing government by a republican form of government. All other parties consisted of men who had but one idea, that is, to fight against the alien rulers. That idea is quite laudable, but cannot be termed a revolutionary idea. We must make it clear that revolution does not merely mean an upheaval or a sanguinary strife. Revolution necessarily implies the program of systemic reconstruction of society on new and better adapted basis after complete destruction of the existing state of affairs, that is, regime. In the political field, the liberals wanted some reform under the present government, while the extremists demanded a bit more and were prepared to employ radical means for the same purpose. Among the revolutionaries, they had always been in favor of extreme methods with one idea, that is of overthrowing the foreign domination. No doubt, there had been some who were in favor of extorting some reforms through those means. All those movements cannot rightly be designated as a revolutionary movement. But Lala Ram Saran is the first revolutionary recruited formally in the Punjab by a Bengali absconder in 1908. Since then, he had been in touch with the revolutionary movement and finally joined the Qadar Party, but retaining his old ideas that people held about the ideal of their movement. It has another interesting fact to add to its beauty and value. Lala Ram Saran was sentenced to death in 1915, and the sentence was later on commuted to life transportation. Today, sitting in condemned cells myself, I can let the readers know as authoritatively that the life imprisonment is comparatively a far harder lot than that of death. Lala Ram Saran had actually to undergo 14 years of imprisonment. It was in some southern jail that he wrote this poetry. The then psychology and mental struggle of the author has tempted its impression upon the poetry and makes it all the more beautiful and interesting. He had been struggling hard against some depressing mood before he decided to write. In the days when many of his comrades had been let off on undertakings and the temptation had been very strong for everyone and for him, and when the sweet and painful memories of his wife and children had added more to the work. Hence, we find sudden outburst in the opening paragraph. Wife, children, friends, that me surround, or poisonous snake all around. He discusses philosophy in the beginning. This philosophy is the backbone of all the revolutionary movement of Bengal as well as of the Punjab. I differ from him on this point very vitally. His interpretation of the universe is teleological and metaphysical, while I am a materialist and my interpretation of the phenomenon could be casual. Nevertheless, it is by no means out of place or out of date. The general ideals that are prevailing in our country are more in accordance with those expressed by him. To fight that depressing mood, he resorted to prayers, as is evident that the whole of the beginning of the book is devoted to God, his praise, his definition. His belief in God is the outcome of mysticism, which is a natural consequence of depression. That this word is Maya or Mithya, a dream or a fiction, is clear mysticism which has been originated and developed by Hindu sages of all ages, such as Shankaracharya and others. But in the materialist philosophy, this mode of thinking has got absolutely no place. But this mysticism of the author is by no means ignoble or deplorable. It has its own idea of them doing very productive labor. The only difference that the socialist society expects is that the mental workers shall no longer be regarded superior to the manual workers. Lala Ram Saran's idea was about free education is really worth considering, and the socialist government has adopted somewhat the same course in Russia. His discussion about crime is really the most advanced school of thought. Crime is the most serious social problem which needs a very tactful treatment. He has been in jail for the better part of his life. He has got the practical experience. At one place, he employs the typical jail terms, the light labor, the medium labor, and the hard labor, etc. Like other socialists, he suggests that instead of retribution, that is retaliation, the reformative theory should form the basis of punishment. Not to punish, but to reclaim should be guiding principle of the administration of justice. Jail should be reformatories and not veritable hells. In this connection, the reader should study the Russian prison system. While dealing with militia, he discusses war as well. In my opinion, war as an institution shall occupy a few pages in the encyclopedia then. Our war materials shall adorn the no conflicting or diverse interests that cause war. At the utmost, we can say that war shall have to be retained as an institution for the transitional period. We can easily understand if we take the example of present-day Russia. There is the dictatorship of the proletariat at present. They want to establish a socialist society. Meanwhile, they have to maintain an army to defend themselves against the capitalist society. But the war aims would be different. Imperialist designs shall no more actuate our dreamland people to wage wars. There shall be no more war trophies. Revolutionary armies shall march to other lands to bring rulers down from their thrones and stop their blood-sucking exploitation and thus to liberate the toiling masses. But there shall not be primitive national or racial hatred to goad our men to fight. World Federation is the most popular and immediate object of all the free-thinking people, and the author has well dilated on the subject, and his criticism of the so-called League of Nations is beautiful. In a footnote under stanza 571, the author touches briefly the question of methods. He says, such a kingdom cannot be brought about by physical violent revolutions. It cannot be forced upon society from without. It must grow from within. This can be brought about by the gradual process of evolution, by educating the masses on the lines mentioned above. This statement does not in itself contain any discrepancy. It is quite correct, but having not been fully explained, is liable to create some misunderstanding, or worse still, a confusion. Does it mean that Lala Ram Saran has realized the futility of the cult of force? Has he become an orthodox believer in non-violence? No, it does not mean that. Let me explain what the above quoted statement amounts to. The revolutionaries know better than anybody else that the socialist society cannot be brought about by violent means, but that it should grow and evolve from within. The author suggests education as the only weapon to be employed. But everybody can easily realize that the present government here, or as a matter of fact, all the capitalist governments are not only going to help any such effort, but on the contrary, suppress it mercilessly. Then what will his evolution? We, the revolutionaries, are striving to capture power in our hands and to organize a revolutionary government which should employ all its resources of mass education as is being done in Russia today. After capturing power, peaceful methods shall be employed for constructive work. Force shall be employed to crush the obstacles. If that is what the author means, then we are at one. I am confident that it is exactly this that he means. I have discussed the book at great length. I have rather criticized it, but I am not going to ask any alteration in it, because this has got its historical value. These were the ideas of 1914 and 15 revolutionaries. I strongly recommend this book to young men in particular, but with the warning. Please do not read it to follow blindly and take for granted what is written in it. Read it, criticize it, think over it, and try to formulate your own ideas with its help. This was the 20th chapter of our very first book. Stay tuned for upcoming videos covering rest of the chapters. Thanks and keep listening to Literate.